So if you're running for re-election, why would you want to even get into this again? I mean, anyway, I don't even want to ask you that question. What the people out there want to know is, what is your agenda for the next 4 years if you win?
Infrastructure, economic development. The three things that are hugely important.
So this is kind of the same thing. You say,
it's never going to end.
Right.
I mean, you have to remember, infrastructure projects will never end. There'll never be a day when our primary focus and most of our money will go towards infrastructure, whether it is streets, whether it's water. Those are going to always take the majority of the funds. And the only way you can finance those is through economic development, meaning create an environment and an atmosphere of positiveness towards business growth, business expansion, recruiting new businesses, because the city only has two key areas of revenue: property tax dollars and sales tax dollars. And the property tax dollars that we take in, now first of all, most people don't understand that all the property tax dollars that they paid don't come to the city.
A lot of it goes to the school district.
The school gets the majority,
to
some to the county. We don't get it all. But the part that we do get, that entire amount that we get pays for fire and police. And in fact, it only pays a part of it because there's $2 million of it that now has to come out of the general fund because your property tax dollars don't cover the entire expense of fire and police. And I say to people, you complain, I need you to understand what your sales tax dollars do. So when you go to Austin, San Antonio, Dallas, Houston, all these other communities.
Let's stop right there. We can talk about the sales tax, but the city budget was about
It's $77 million.
$77 million, but half of it roughly half comes from sales tax, half of it from property tax.
Oh, property tax is the largest percentage.
But the property tax historically has covered your public safety, your fire and police.
It used to be, and then used to be there would be some left over. It doesn't cover it even
so
now.
now we need sales tax to be able to cover the police officers they want to raise. We need sales tax revenue.
Correct.
If the fire department needs a raise, or we need a new fire engine or something like that, we have to use sales tax. Okay, and sales tax are generated by local transactions.
That's correct. So
when you go to Houston,
and you spend money down there, you took money out of our pocket.
Buy your pantyhose in San Angelo's.
Shop local, support local. Right. And yes, there are some things that people need that we don't have here. We get that. We realize it's fun to go to other cities and spend money, but people really need to understand the money that you don't spend in this city and you spend somewhere else is money we don't have for our infrastructure projects.
All right, biggest infrastructure project you have going on right now that has the most visibility is the street system.
It is.
Streets. So other than the Chadbourne Street project, what else do we have on the pike for fixing our, because all you hear about today is potholes.
Yes.
Right?
Well, we just put $1 million into the, if you will, pothole project.
Okay.
And so there's a plan that everything that was damaged during this storm, that there will be, we've hired 2 contractors, they're going to be working on those things. But we've also now announced the Southwest Boulevard project, street reconstruction. And here's one of the things you laugh about. So, when you do street reconstruction, you got to close some of the street traffic.
You mean someone complained about the streets being closed? Okay.
Yes. And so I say, there's a little bit of pain that goes with all of these projects. When we were redoing Bell Street, I can't tell you the number of businesses that called and said, how dare you, you've cut off access to my business, people can't get here, I'm going to go out of business. And some of that, that's true.
Right.
But you can't redo streets without closing.
You got to have some inconvenience to get to the thing.
Yeah.
Well, a lot of people, came from the big cities where the streets are terminally under
all the
construction.
time.
Especially I-35, I-10 in Houston.
Grapevine,
it's
a
a
disaster.
You go up on 183, 121 in Dallas, they're always under construction, so they just assume, well, it's going to be under construction all the time.
It's part of the pain to get the gain. It is part of what you do. But I think it's really important because people really don't relate, I think, and don't understand that it's the sales tax dollars that you spend in this city that goes to our infrastructure projects. That's what finances them. So every dollar we don't get takes $1 out of a budget.
How do you think our sales tax revenue has done over the COVID and everything.
Actually, pretty well. Interesting that it has, but for combinations, I would say for 2 reasons. Unfortunately, we had this massive hailstorm.
May of 2020.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so one of the biggest increases we had in sales tax dollars came from what would have been the impact of that storm, because you can't buy a roof on Amazon.
Right.
You're not going
So
to buy siding.
The roofers saved our sales tax last year.
Well, and siding and window repair
Right.
and all of the repairs that people had to make on their homes. So it had a huge impact.
So it was Lowe's, Home Depot, and the
Did
roofers.
well.
Right.
Yeah, they did well.
What else helped the sales tax last year?
The government stimulus checks, they certainly did.
Because people went out and they bought more at Chick-fil-A.
Yes, and yeah, I mean, the reality is they had money in their pocket and they spent it, whether it was on their homes, whether it was on other housing projects or clothing for the combination of things,
Right.
but it had a positive impact.
All right, so in closing,
Yes, sir.
you had don't call me sir. In closing, over the last 4 years, particularly this last year, where you had all this calamity, are there any lessons that you learned, or anything you would do differently?
There's always a woulda, shoulda, coulda, because it's easier to reflect back and say, but at the time when you're making the decision, you truly believe you're making the best decision you possibly can. I'm sorry that I was not more vocal about business closures, meaning making sure people understood it was the governor, not me, making those decisions. You assume too often that everybody knows the information, that they have the correct information, that they're not just using Facebook as their means of communication and information. Because I took a lot of heat for things I had no control over. So I would say communication would need to be...
And you wanted to communicate, I think, more empathy or sympathy
Yes,
for
I did.
business owners.
I did. And for people, because I know what they were going through. One of the toughest days I had was the day a grandfather called me and said, I'm raising my 3 grandkids and I'm a barber. And you close my business. I don't know how I'm going to feed my grandkids.
What'd you do?
Gave him resources in terms of where to go. And made sure that there wouldn't be an issue feeding his kids. They could grandkids, he could take care of them. And so it was also about finding the resources to make sure that people had places to turn, that we didn't have starving people, that, we really had to evaluate.
The city was aggressive in going out and getting the COVID relief money
Yes.
from the CARES Act and things like that. So,
And it's a caring community. People helped people. A lot of the nonprofits
Right.
really stepped up and made sure that they looked at the situation and figured out how they could help families. And they did a great job.
so in summary, what you would do differently is you wish you could communicate better or more effectively the real concerns that you felt.
Yeah, and better understanding. When there's no playbook for this. This is the first time we've had something dramatic like this happen. So there's no playbook. So you're every day taking whatever's thrown at you and trying to deal with it, not knowing when Governor Abbott was going to make some new declaration that you were going to be expected to execute and communicate and make happen. It was a daily project. It was a daily challenge. And I think today we've gone through a pandemic. We've come out on the other side. I think we'll know better if there's another pandemic. We're all praying that there's not going to be another
Right.
scenario like 2020.
Right.
But it happened.
Well, Mayor Brenda Gunter, she's up for re-election. Early voting is Monday,
Yes.
April 19th through Friday.
Yes.
And I don't know what date that is. And then the election day is on the Saturday, May 1st.
Correct.
And I'm Joe Hyde for Mayor Gunter. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.